David Neal.
David, good to see you, man.
Good to see you.
How you been?
I've been good.
It's been a while, but I can see you on social media, so like I still know what you look like. How about that?
It's a lot different than probably the last time we were around each other in person. I probably had a little less of this gray hair.
Do you have gray? I don't know. You have a hat on. Do you have gray hair?
Yeah, lots of it. Mainly right here, so my wife gets mad when I cut it too short. But for whatever reason, I feel like when it's shorter, it's not as noticeable.
Mine comes to my sideburns, and so I cut my sideburns so short. My wife's like, "That looks weird." She's like, "Why do you cut that?" I said, "Well, I don't like my hair looking different colors." So I just say that. Really, I just want to shave the gray out of it. But kids will do that to you, I'm told.
Yeah, I have a guitar player who played with me a long, long time ago and has been filling in off and on. And he has a legit beard, and it's just full of gray. And I'm actually a year older than him. So every time I introduce him, I always tell the crowd, I'm like, that's why I didn't normally shave as often as I do. But when I look at him every night, I'm like, that's why I do it right there.
You ever let that grow
otherwise
out?
I'd look like that.
Do you let it grow out ever?
Yeah, I think it's at the point now where I'm just like, I'm going to try to keep it as my kids hate it. I've got 2 girls and they look for every excuse for me not to, kiss on them and cuddle up to them. So I try to, get rid of all of those reasons as much as I can. And this is sort of the obvious one.
How old are your girls?
I have a 10 and a 5-year-old.
How's that been?
Oh, man, I feel like this morning, I got them to school. We live just a decent golf shot away from our school, so I get to walk them to school. The little one gets to start kindergarten this year, so it's great. But the girls are, my 10-year-old, she thinks she's 14. They say everything happens to kids earlier and earlier, and I always thought that was just parents complaining, but it's legit. It's a legit thing.
We have a 4-month-old girl.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I like to ask, what happens with girls. Because I know what happens with boys because I was one. I know all that. But girls, it's like I've discovered an alien universe, I feel.
Girls are awesome. I think I was a little paranoid about really the kind of dad I'd be, boy or girl. I think you're always just a little, when suddenly, it's one thing to talk about it and until you get somebody right there. We had 2 at the same time. I had twins, boy and a girl. So I got sort of a test run with both of them. And they all have their quirks, I guess. But I definitely thought the boy would be easier, and sometimes I guess it is. But just for example, I was walking them to school today, and I was telling her not to talk to boys, and I was telling my son to talk to girls. and she's sort of like, that's not fair or whatever, because he's still she's boy crazy, and he's still sort of on the fence about are any of my friends talking about girls? I can't, he's very musical, but he's still very unsure if that's cool or not, because most of his friends are into sports. So it's weird how, when they're the exact same age, you get to see sort of their interest change, the girls sort of advance a little further, a little quicker, I guess.
I saw a funny TikTok where a dad and his daughter were there, and his daughter was 9, and it was a trust fall exercise where the dad was going to catch his daughter when she falls back. And he said, I'm teaching my daughter how much to trust boys. And he goes, fall. And then he let her fall all the way to the ground. And he's like, that's right, never trust boys.
Yeah.
It's funny.
I told my daughter, I said, don't flirt with any boys. And then I looked at my son and I said, okay, you come home, you better have 2 phone numbers. And he said, but I don't even have a phone. I said, I don't care, just have them. And then he goes, do I need to write them down? And then my 10-year-old, his twin sister, turns around and goes, if they're pretty enough, you'll memorize it. And I was like, dang, that's pretty good. Yeah.
Oh.
I was like, you make sure you sort of hold on to that too,
What kind of kid were you?
I grew up in a tiny town. I think that I sort of am reminded of that all the time. In our neighborhood, a buddy of mine lives behind me, just sent his oldest daughter to high school. And I think she has 590 kids in her class.
Wow.
And that's easily more than I went to high school with, all, 9 through 12. And probably 50, 75 more. So I can't even imagine, what it was like to not know every single, I would know pretty much every at least something about every single person in the school. I was a little rebellious. I was a pretty good kid. My grandparents lived right across the street. My father was a band director. My mother was a superintendent secretary. So it's a tiny town. People talk. It was thankfully before social media and stuff. But I think in small towns, people talk so much. It's like it was kind of small towns. I feel like were like Twitter before Twitter.
Yeah, I went to a school where the entire school, kindergarten through 12th grade, was 600 people. So it was
Wow.
very small. We had 60 in our class, and it was one of the bigger classes ever. But you're right. You knew everything about everyone to the point where if something got stolen in town, you probably knew what family did it. Like everybody just had their thing, and you were like, oh, someone's chainsaw got stolen? For sure that was the Johnstons. Like, for sure the Johnston kid stole the chainsaw.
At our high school, like literally, like there were 2 parking lots, and it was funny. Like when you were a freshman, everybody sort of went by the parking lot where maybe those kids didn't necessarily make the best decisions, and over the course of your freshman year, you would see some of the freshmen sort of gravitating towards that parking lot. So they were sort of making their decision pretty early, And then, of course, your senior year, you'd be like, yeah, I remember when they kind of started going there, like in, Christmas of our freshman year. And so it was just like you sort of made the decision, but you knew well before, like you got to high school, sort of what the situation was. It wasn't something that was obviously talked about. Until 30 years later when you're on the Bobby Bones show.
What was your hometown? Was it country? Was it in the country?
Yeah, I mean, like your type of school, we were surrounded by towns like that. I travel around. I tell people I'm from a small town. We play a lot of small towns, and they're like, "Oh, that's not a small town." I'm like, we still. I remember we were supposedly going to get like a Walgreens for like 5 or 6 years. It was talked about.
Is the rumor?
Like a big deal.
Is a rumor that Walgreens is coming?
And like people were losing their mind because it was like we got a super Walmart my senior year of high school, and my kids laugh, but I'm like, we literally, like, if you were bored, you would just go to super. Like you wouldn't have any reason to go there other than to just walk around. Like I didn't have any money, but I remember like finally one day going, and when is this Walgreens? It was supposed to go to like. The Dairy Queen was going to go somewhere else, and the Dairy Queen, they were going to tear it down. It was going to become a Walgreens. And it's right there sort of where everybody comes in. You pass the golf course, and it's just going to be like, wow, there's the Walgreens. We never got no damn Walgreens. Still don't have no Walgreens. I think we had a Super 8 for like a month. That ain't no Super 8 no more. It's a Super never stay there. But, yeah, I mean, I remember, like, people – I would have cousins that would come visit, and as they got older and sort of more aware, like I would always wonder, like, why are they staying like 45 miles away? And it was like, well, because that was like the first like chain
town
hotel that had like a legit, we were 15, 16 miles away from I-55, so of course there were, your Holiday Inn Expresses and stuff, but. Yeah, I mean, I grew. People came to our town to cruise, but like, it's hilarious. But the first time I took my wife to my hometown, I took her like through the little strip, and dead serious, like we were right beside the church that I got baptized in, and she looked at me and she goes, "When do you remember your town dying?" And I was like, man, that's a long walk back to Memphis. Like, I mean, it hurt my heart.
Yeah.
Like I knew I loved where I grew up, but like. She's just looking around, and it's just crazy how you have sort of rose-colored glasses, and there were like obviously signs, I guess, but it was just, and I still, I tell people in shows all the time, if my wife wasn't, she went to Ole Miss, she's snooty sorority girl, I'd move back tomorrow. My best friend since I was 4 years old still lives in the same neighborhood, and we went there for the 4th of July. But what's crazy is, in the 17, 18 years we've been together, with each and every year, she sort of gets more fond of it, wants to spend more time. Her and my best friend's wife have become friends, and so it's fun, especially as the kids get older. And that was sort of my only hope, is hopefully they'll like it enough and it'll make enough impact that they'll always think fondly of it and want to go visit.
Is there a Walgreens there now?
No.
Okay, still we're
never got it.
Walgreen-less.
And we're like the town, your town's probably like this, where like somehow we have 3 Mexican restaurants and they're all in the same places, but like every time I go home, the names have changed. It's like a different Mexican family comes in, they change the name, paint the outside, and it's new. And then that's literally like the talk in the town, especially, Sunday after church is like, which Mexican restaurant are we going to go to? Then you spend 30 minutes arguing over which one's the best and which one's, and literally this last time when we went home after church, my father was like, hey, you want to go to the Mexican restaurant? And I have to ask, which one's the one now? And we went to the one that was the flavor of the month, I guess.
We had a town near us that did exactly that, and they also had a Sonic.
Oh, yeah.
My town, we had nothing except we didn't even have a traffic light, but we had a sawmill, and when it shut down, that's where everybody worked.
Yeah.
When it shut down, it's over.
You'll like this because I know you're from Arkansas. So we had a Sonic too, and I don't mean to talk negative about anybody, but it is funny. It's one of the first classes that I had at Arkansas State. I went there for a year and a half. And there's these 2 non-identical girl twins, and it's like the first class, and it's going around the room. Hey, where'd you grow up? What did you do? And both of these girls are like, we were car hops at Sonic. I never heard another word the rest of the class. I was so fascinated that these 2 girls, they were attractive girls, worked at Sonic. That just blew me away. So like after class, not even trying to hit on them, I was just like, you really work at Sonic? And they looked at me like, we kill it. They were from Truman. You probably know where Truman is.
I do.
And I was just dumbfounded by that. I was like, man, like the cool kids in my town, we worked at Dairy Queen. You'd have never been caught dead working at Sonic. Like I was just I was just trying to picture these 2 girls, waiting on the whole town. She was like, we kill it in tips. I was like, I bet you do.
Yeah, that's the difference,
She was like, we ride on the roller skates. I'd never even heard of that. That nobody rode roller skates at my Sonic.
Did you guys have Piggly Wiggly at all?
I think when I was really young.
What grocery chain did you have? Because
we had Kroger until probably rumors of the Super Walmart came in, and then they
killed the rumors killed the Kroger.
Man, it's crazy. Like I tell people all the time, like I remember brown Walmart, like before, like Super Walmart was blue.
It used to be brown.
There used to be a brown. Yeah, yep. The blue
and people
brown.
look at me like, when was Walmart ever brown?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, man, are you serious? I'm that old? Like, damn.
I think it's the region that we lived in because we had a brown Walmart too. And I don't think everybody had a brown Walmart. And it was just the blue was brown. It was smaller. But
yeah.
Super Walmart being invented itself, when they had groceries, my mind was blown. We had to go to town to go to Walmart. But I remember when they put a Super Walmart in Hot Springs, I could not believe they had groceries in with the Walmart stuff. Just that itself was mind-blowing to me. Because the grocery store is supposed to exist and Walmart was supposed to exist. And for those that are listening in a big city right now, this is the most small town talk you'll ever hear. Whenever Walmart's expanded to have groceries, that was a big deal.
Yeah, we have another grocery store on the other side of town, and I remember like, it was sort of the classic case of, the local people wanted every reason in the world to still hold on to like the other places, and so my parents would be like, hey, what do you want for lunch? And they'd say or whatever, they'd be like, well, we're gonna have to go to the other place to get meat because you don't want to get meat at Walmart. And it was like, who decided that? Like, how did that become a thing, And then, I remember when I moved here, a buddy of mine who was like in business was telling me how, I was like, one of the insults when I was a kid was you would say like, oh, you're on great value. And then, it comes out the other day that when this whole leaf thing happened that Whole Foods was getting their lettuce at the same place as Walmart.
Yeah.
And all these people, it was like Whole Foods is offended, and all the people at Walmart are like, yes, he told you.
We told you
our
it's
lettuce
equally
was
as
good.
good. Yeah.
And he told me the same thing. He was like, that's such like a marketing thing, that
Totally.
He's like, the food is more or less coming from the exact same places. And I remember like, I don't think that guy has a very good business, but
Why did you move to Nashville?
believe it or not, I wanted to be a singer.
But like, why? Like, what made you think from a small town that you can move to Nashville and make it? Because people from small towns, they don't make it. You know, that's what we think.
Well, I mean, I will say that I tell people, I honestly, this is a true story. I think that I thought when I was so unprepared to graduate, I really think I thought when I graduated they were going to decide, you know what, we really need to like invent a 13th grade. You can get to stay here one more year, and then maybe kind of figure it all out. And I mean, I didn't know, if I was going to go to college or anything until probably the middle part of that summer. And my summer baseball coach asked me, some coaches were sort of talking, just some junior college, small colleges, like, hey, what's that Nail kid doing? And he asked me, and I was on deck getting ready to take batting practice, and I just turned around and I said, do you know anybody in Nashville? I'd never really talked about it. I had a choir director early on tell me that I should, and I always, looking back, think that was like just amazing advice from an educator, because I grew up when hey, man, if you don't go to college, you're a loser. Like, you'll never get a good job, and I didn't graduate, and I still to this day, and I could have, now it's so easy with online stuff, so much more convenient, probably not easy. But I was always interested in sports and music, and I was smart enough, aware enough that I wasn't good enough to be a professional. I do wish I'd sort of pursued it a little longer, but I had this obsession with like, the only way I'll ever make it is if I like do it when I'm like 22. If it doesn't happen if I'm 22, like I'm toast. But the biggest, I guess, sort of reason I thought it was possible is because Sheryl Crow's from my hometown, and she's older than I am. But I guess my freshman year of high school is when she exploded, won all the Grammys. And so, like, I obviously knew, her route was very different than I was sort of going. She did it the smart way, went to Mizzou, became a teacher, then had something to sort of fall back on. But really, like, just the desperation of, like, I've got to do this, or I'll move home and sell sporting goods with my best friend. But it's just, not without trying to go on like a spiritual journey. Like I've always just felt like so many times I've tried to give up, so many times I've tried to sort of, maybe I'm forcing the issue. There's always something that's sort of kind of, where there's a door opening or an opportunity happening that, it's not just coincidence, and that happens enough times. You're like, okay, I should probably stop like denying this and just pursue it. I love it. I mean, I still love it.
Whenever you get here, what'd you learn about yourself? Because it's the land of giants here.
Well, I had this conversation with somebody the other day. I'm so thankful that I did, because I feel like I got here in time to see sort of the old way.
Which is what?
Well, just like pre-social media, pre-whiskey jam, like, when I moved here, there wasn't, I can remember like, 10 years ago getting in a cab with a buddy of mine who's played Major League Baseball, and I wasn't even thinking, and he just said, hey man, where do you go on a Monday night? And the Uber driver said, oh, you got to go to Whiskey Jam. You got to go to Winners. And I know the guy that started that really well. He's the first guitar player I ever had. I've known him for 20 years. And I was like, how do you know that? And he's like, oh man, everybody knows that. Like you couldn't get in a taxi cab in 2000 and somebody tell you where to go. Obviously there were places where people in the music business went, but you certainly couldn't move to town and find that out within a week. I mean, I went to all the bars, like it wasn't just obvious. And so I like that. I like that sort of, because then it made like when you did sort of find those places and stumble upon them and meet somebody, there was like this mystique, there's mysteriousness to it. And like I just, you had to sort of jump in, you had to move here, like you couldn't put a bunch of songs up and hope and pray or whatever. And then what if you do that and, the first 20 people say you suck and you go, okay, well, I guess I need to go work at Home Depot rather than just coming here and sort of learning the business. And, I think there's something to say about just, I heard, I can't remember who it was. It was a younger artist the other day on a podcast, and he said, like, you can't just sort of dip your toe in the water and kind of see, like, hey, I think it might have been Chesney, who was just like, people ask him, like, what do I need to do to make it? And he's like, I never can tell those people this. He goes, but sort of there's this first thought of, like if you're kind of having to ask that, it's like, you just kind of have to do it. You just have to, like, there's no other option. Like, I'm going to do this regardless if 1,000 people say I'm good or 50 people show up to my shows and that's something really in the last year that I've sort of gotten, not content, but just sort of like, hey, we can't all be Morgan Wallen or we can't all be Eric Church, but that doesn't mean the people from Eric Church to whoever's playing, in the street corner are unsuccessful or hadn't been able to do all these amazing things. And I just told my wife one night, I was like, like, we're always sort of, I do think that at least when I came up with the music business, it was like, don't celebrate your victories. Like, you just keep your head down, just keep working. You stop and smell the roses, somebody's gaining on you. And so you're just like, well, I've got to play Madison Square Garden or I'm a loser. Well, I never have, and I don't think I'm a loser. I would really like to. It's one of two places that I wish I could say that I played, but like it doesn't suddenly cancel out all the other amazing places I've played.
So when you get to town, when did you start to feel validation that you belonged here and could actually have a sustained career?
I don't know that. I think you just wake up one day and you're like, oh, like, it seems insane to me that I've lived here 25 plus years. It's just like, I was thinking about it on the way here. And I'm going to live 35 miles south of here. So when I come into town, there's 6 new skyscrapers. I'm just like, wow, this is just like a completely different place. So it definitely makes me feel old. There were a couple of moments. On my first record, it took forever to get a second record deal for it to actually come out. I had a song, the second song or I guess technically the third song, the song after Red Light we released was a song called Turning Home. It died like 16, 17, somewhere around there. Early fall. And in late November, my wife and I are in our first home in tiny little house in Franklin, and I get a phone call at like 11:30 on a Sunday night telling me that I had been nominated for a Grammy. And I remember thinking, like, I looked at my wife and I was like, people like what I do. Like, I was aware enough to know that was a really big deal, especially like all the other songs were number ones. I don't know that I've necessarily had like a conversation or something. Vince Gill one time told me in front of my wife, thankfully I had a witness. He was like, it's so good to have good singers on the radio, David. And I just remember like not saying another word the rest of the night. And then I got in the car and I was like, did you hear that? Did I just imagine that? And, but just little things like that. I think that my philosophy once I started on the road was, man, I just hope we have a good enough year this year that we can have a next year. There wasn't like, I need to play 5 more shows or I need to make more money. Obviously, like, you hope, but I just wanted to survive. And I think that, it's like I tell my kids all the time, my son told me literally yesterday, I'm not lying. He goes, Ella Langley's better than you. And I was like, cool. Okay. Like, no context. We're not talking about anything. And I was like, okay, well, just out of curiosity, like, what makes you think that? And he said, well, you told me you didn't write whatever she's got, and she's written all of her songs, so she's better. And I mean, I couldn't really, like, argue with him. And but I try to tell him, I'm like, there were a lot of moments, especially like before they were born, where I was like, your dad I was on a roller coaster, I was very unsure if like I'd be standing where I am today. And I was like, so you're right. And the truth is, if we're being honest, like she's probably made more money in the last 6 months than I have in my career, which is great. But like this business and this community has provided everything you're living in, and has provided, my kids were IVF. So it obviously, provided them. And so I just think that for whatever reason, I think a lot of people probably learned this a lot earlier than I did, but I just, obviously want them to have a sense of reality but obviously to be appreciative and grateful. And, everybody's going to have one more number one hit. Everybody's going to play one more sold out show or one more stadium or whatever. It's like, but you need to be grateful for, where your feet are and appreciative of where God has you right now.
I'm a fan of you. I'm also a fan of Anderson East. Just at what you guys do individually, musically, both your voices. And I know you guys on this record that you put out, Flowers, like he wrote, if not all, most of the songs with you? Was it?
All but one. Lori McKenna and I wrote the only other outside tune. And that was Anderson's idea. Like, it was one of the last things we cut. And it was weird, I think without a doubt of anybody that I've worked with, I know Anderson the least, but there's something really cool about that. And I definitely know that like 15 or 10 years ago or whatever, maybe even 5 years ago, like that would have been weird to me. And like, I would have been skeptical of that and probably unable to like really be vulnerable. And but for whatever reason, like, I mean, when we got set up to write, I always, say I must have had a great day, because I agreed to it like 3 or 4 months before. And normally I would have been like, let me think about it. And then you just hope nobody brings it up again. Not anything against him. It's just the circle of people I've written with over 20 years has been very small. And I remember the day that I drove to his house and walking in, like, it was different than any sort of, I guess, environment. His studio / house is insane. The most like inspiring place I've ever worked in. I mean, it just, you walk in and you're like, holy crap, like we could do anything today. We could make a freaking record today. Like there is.
How's he get that energy in there?
Well, there's just every instrument known to man.
Oh.
They're all sort of exposed. And it kind of validated something. I remember telling my wife, like, at the last house we lived in, we ended up finishing our garage, and it sort of became like a working area. I had never had like enough space to leave a guitar out or two, and never had like an office or anything. And I just told her one day, I mean, this is like 10 years or 6 or 7 years ago. I was like, I just feel like if I just could reach and grab something, like I would be curious to how much more music would come out, but sometimes things hit you and you're like, where's that case at? Oh, I don't want to have to go do that. You just find a million reasons why. And it just, everything was there. There's a drum room. I mean, it's just amazing. But the hilarious thing is I went to so much media training early on in my career. And one of the only thing I remember about it was they said when you get really uncomfortable, you talk about like something that you feel like you're knowledgeable about, that you can talk about and bond with somebody. So I knew he's from Alabama. So, I mean, it's kind of, you're feeling each other out. And I was like, so I know you're from, Alabama. Are you like an Alabama Auburn guy? And he goes, I don't really give a. And I'm like, Dang.
There goes that.
was
I know.
That was my bullet.
That's like every dude that when you meet a dude, you're like, okay, where can we bond on sports real quick?
So like after that, I was like, oh damn, I guess this dude want to work. He want to write a song. So, it was just so different. But for whatever reason, I mean, he's a brilliant musician. He's very like blunt. And I think, like I said, very early on in my career, I would have probably been sort of hesitant to follow that.
But you did all this
It was
together.
just so hip. Yeah. And like, I never knew. Maybe there are people in the, I guess, world that sort of, architected, I guess. But it just was, I never even thought anything about potential or albums until there's a song on there called Skyline.
Play it, Ray. Play Skyline, please. Just a little bit.
I watch the skyline change. I can't see the stars for all the buildings in the way.
Not to interrupt you, but I want to have a little context here. Yeah, go ahead.
And that was when I remember going home and I was like, man, I think we have enough stuff for like an EP, because I'd done a bunch of EPs and it really fits my personality better, because I feel like you can sort of close the door on something, put it out, and then move on to the next thing, instead of just how long it takes to sort of make a record, get cool with everything, and then put it out. And we did go in and record that and 4 other tunes. And I mean, I don't remember, but I'm sure there was part of me that was like, hey, let's just put this out, this is fine. But we just kept writing, and actually the last song on the record is a tune called Riverbank that I also wrote with Lori McKenna and Anderson. And that was the song when I was like, okay, hey, this could be an album now. Like, we got enough stuff.
How did you know when to stop?
We had like 12 or 13 tunes. And I think the 10 or 11 strongest were like clearly the strongest. And I know like now I feel like it's like more is better. Everybody wants to record as many songs, but this was like truly a thing when I started. I remember the first conversation I had with my lawyer at the time was like, never put more than 11 songs on your record because it changes your royalty rate. And so like, I mean, I can remember asking like, man, I really want to put 12, or could I really put like, and having to like cut songs because of that reason. So, they were pretty clear, I think. Like the best 11 or 10, and I think it probably became more of a time thing of why we didn't do 11, and then just these 10.
Whenever I think about when we moved to town as a show, it was 2013, and there are like 3 songs I think about from 2013 that reminds me of, music makes you feel a certain way because you felt it then. It does something to your brain for a split second, makes you feel it again. It makes you like taste what's in your mouth, and it's whatever she's got. Like that song was playing, that and Hauser, oh, those 2 songs played about every 5 seconds. And I think about us moving here in 2013 when that song was popping. So you may not know it, but like I can taste you sometimes.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I hope it tastes okay. It's wild, I remember, I always hate telling this story because I have to kind of name drop, but my wife had like a surprise, I guess, 30th birthday at the time. She was 30. I was not, I wish. And it was at Maggiano's, and we were in sort of a private room, and I remember like walking in there going, did you book this? Like, how are we going to pay for this private room? And I had known Luke Bryan since, I think we moved to town about the same time. I had known him forever. But she had become friends with his wife and really good friends with Caroline's brother's wife, Ellen. And so there was this very, different group of people, and Luke, we're sitting talking, and nobody was talking about music, and Luke just like looked across the table. He's like, "Buddy, you got a hit on your hands." Well, my first instinct was like, well, I already had at least one. If hit means number one, I'd had Let It Rain.
Let It Rain, yeah.
So of course, my pride was like, well, you don't remember Red Light was 7. Like, is that not a hit? I was kind of offended, and he was like, no, you don't understand. Like, this is different. I was like, okay. And I swear to you, like 2 weeks later, we were out on the road, and I remember we were at Joe's Bar on Weed Street in Chicago, and I'd played there before, probably 2 or 3 times. And I remember it was the first time where I'd looked out, and people, they weren't like singing the right words, but they were mouthing. And I had never seen that before for a song that was that like young. And I just remember like calling my wife after the show going, dang, man, like this, it's just different. And we weren't playing it last. Like now we play it towards the end, like, and have since, but like it really is, and that, and that's why my son said that, like I referenced earlier, where he was like, well, you didn't write Whatever She's Got. Cause I would always, when he would say that, I would say, yeah, we'd have a bigger house if I wrote that. And ironically, last night at the fair, Williams County Fair, I ran into John Knight, who co-wrote that with Jimmy Robbins. So Small World. That was John's first number 1. Now he's had a bunch.
Well, the major twist is when we were deciding to move here, that song came on because I was like, I don't think we're going to Nashville. And then I heard you sing it, and I was like, we're moving. We packed up, moved here the next day because of that song.
I have a hard time believing that.
You should, because it's a complete lie. But we did hear it all the time when we moved here.
All the time.
We loved it. I love the song.
Well, what was there like another? Was it Nashville or somewhere else?
Nah, it was just
Nashville or stay.
Yeah, it was Nashville or stay in Texas.
Where were you in Texas?
Austin.
Yeah.
Ever been there?
I have.
Yeah, pretty good place, huh?
It's sort of like you moved from exploding place to another exploding place.
Mm-hmm. Kind of like my stomach after I ate pizza with real cheese.
Yeah.
See, there we go.
That's weird because pizza, I am a little bit that way, but it's ice cream now.
I can't
so
do
it's
dairy
a dairy
at all.
thing.
Yeah, I can't do dairy at all.
But I used to, ice cream was really my only like thing as a kid. And then just in the last 10 years, I remember, it wasn't like I ate a lot of it, but I feel like it was a special occasion. We went to Baskin Robbins. I got the usual, 1 butter pecan, 1 pralines and cream. And 30 minutes later, I was in the fetal position. Like, what is wrong? And that didn't, stop me. But a couple of times after that, but like milk, I don't drink a lot of milk, but cheese doesn't really bother me. But man, that ice cream is, I don't know if it's just, there's way more of it in there or a heavier dose, but.
This has been Intolerance Talk with David Nail and Bobby Bones.
I feel your pain.
We'll see you next week on Intolerance. The album is out. It's called Flowers. And yeah, I love Lori, like as a person, much less a writer. And big Anderson fan, and obviously a fan of yours. And I love the record. I just like sonically, like I really enjoy this record. And so I hope it does everything you hope it does. And it's really fantastic, and it's super good to see you again.
Thank you. You too. I appreciate you having me.
I didn't realize you had to drive 45 minutes in.
It wasn't 40. Well, thankfully it was. If it had been at 8 o'clock in the morning, it might have been a different story. It might have taken a little longer, but it was fine.
You guys follow David at David Nail, but the album is out. It is called Flowers. I encourage everyone to check it out. And Down to the Studs tour, it's still going?
Well, we took the summer off. Not a lot of people want to get down to the studs when it's 100 degrees outside, and fairs probably don't want to book that type of show. But yeah, I didn't even ask. I was going to hope that we did it through the fall, but yeah, it was most fun I've ever had. Certainly, probably in over a decade. It's just been great.
But you're hopping back on it. You're doing it fall, winter.
Yes.
Yeah. So yeah, go watch David perform live. There's two. Vince Gill and myself both said we're glad a real singer's here. I don't know. You didn't hear me say that, but I said it too. I just never remember to tell anybody that. In a later interview, say Vince Gill and Bobby Bones. You remember when you got to town? They both said, "I'm glad a real singer's in town."
You know what is a true story? You could cut me whenever, but this
I'm not cutting you. No,
this
go.
is true. The first time I ever came to your show, I was told on the way I had to do a cover song, and I had never.
They told you on the way?
Yeah, I'd never done many covers.
Okay.
The only cover I'd really ever done was like sort of a mashup of "Are You Sure Hank Done It This Way" and a song of mine, and I knew that wasn't appropriate. Or just how we did it would have been hard to pull off. And randomly I did "In the Ghetto."
Oh,
I remember
yeah.
that.
And it crushed.
And Tim McGraw, I guess, called in, or somehow
Yes.
I that happened. And I swear, certainly more than any radio interview I've ever done, I've had more people talk about like random people that don't even live here. They'll reference that.
Well, you know we're on all over the country.
Yes, I was aware.
Okay. It's like people that don't even live here. I'm like, we're on,
Yeah. I know you're a big deal.
No, I'm just saying, you're like, I was in Missouri and someone brought it up. I was like, yeah, we're on there.
But it was,
Yeah, that killed.
you hear stories about like so-and-so called in, like, and I always like, yeah, I'm sure.
Now that's I haven't thought about that, but I remember you doing that and people being blown away by it. And I'm jaded. I hear everything. Everybody's got something, and you know, we live here. Everybody's awesome. That was really special, and I haven't thought about that in forever.
And I've never actually like officially met Tim McGraw. That's kind of strange now that I say that, but like I have no ties to him whatsoever. So, if it had been somebody that I'd toured with or shared a producer with, like it'd have still been great. But like when it's somebody that is just moved to do that, there's certain times I've heard stuff and I'm like, oh, that's great. If I see that person, I'll say something, but I'm not gonna call in or whatever. So that was really cool.
You guys forget about that?
Oh, that was a great version. I remember it now.
I remember
hadn't thought
nothing
about it
from
forever.
like 4 weeks ago, but I remember that. Like I'm fried at this point.
So
but,
good.
Well, you got a 4-month-old. You got an excuse.
Yeah. Dave, it's really good to see you, man.
Thank you. You too.
And you guys, album is out, but also the tour is starting back. I just got a note like late August. So where we are. So you're about to go back on it now. Go watch David perform live. There he is, the great Dave. Oh, you're doing a cover. He's doing a cover now. All right, bring your guitar in.
A random cover.
Yeah,
I asked before.
We don't even tell him on the way in. We tell him while he's here.
When they told me to bring my ears, I was like, well, should I bring a guitar too? Like I'd never heard that before, but
Here he is.
now it makes sense.
David Nell, everybody.
Yeah.
Great.
It's a